I have played quite a lot of cozy games over the years, especially since starting my channel, and I wanted to make a video compiling all of the cozy games that I've played that I do not recommend picking up, and then what I'd recommend picking up instead. So this is kind of like my anti-buying guide, plus, if you're looking at the game, okay, here's something else that I'd recommend, and maybe it can kind of help guide you if you're a new cozy gamer, or if you're just looking into a new game, or if you just want to hear the tea about games that I didn't really enjoy. I've compiled it all into one video pretty much. There are so many options out there in the farming sim genre, and the cozy gaming space has gotten so large. So I'm hoping this guide can help you make the right choice for you, and hopefully this can help you avoid spending money on games that you don't end up liking. But I will also be sure to tell you a little bit about the game that I recommend avoiding, because everyone has their own tastes, and maybe there's somebody out there who that game is the perfect fit for, but don't say I didn't warn you, okay? Now, the first game, oh my gosh, not this hair. Now, the first game I have not talked about in so long, and this game is Lakeburg Legacies. Lakeburg Legacies is a social-based village management sim focused on pairing up your townsfolk to make the best, most effective families in order for your kingdom to grow and thrive. You get to make couples between your favorite villagers and then create the best lineages, generation after generation, so that the families can be as effective as possible in their jobs, which then earns your village prestige. And this game took me a playthrough of 30 in-game years to understand the gameplay, which that can go by pretty quickly, but this game ends after a certain amount of years that you choose when starting the save, and I didn't understand things, and it was really, really confusing, and it does have a lot of cute elements, and I think it markets towards this matchmaking idea, which is kind of what I was interested in this game about. Everyone hyped it up at the time, so I was super excited about it. You need to remember, like, the characters' likes and dislikes, and answer questions to guide conversations on their dates. And so, like, I was excited about that part of the game, but this game was actually so overwhelming, so difficult, and not a good starting place for a management game for me at all. And it was highly marketed towards the matchmaking. So this game is $22.99, and it is a little steep compared to the games that I'm going to recommend that you pick up. So instead of picking up Lakeburg Legacies, instead I recommend a game like Minami Lane. Minami Lane is only $4.99. And it is a game that is so wholesome and fun, and it is the perfect management game for me especially, because this game is so easily explained, it's not overwhelming at all, and it provides such a fun and wholesome experience of a management game compared to Lakeburg Legacies for sure. This one is a more casual management game with much less stress and confusion. The art style is also super precious, and this game is super affordable. This game is super fun. There are levels with goals that you can complete. There is also a sandbox mode where you can just be creative and relax without objectives. So this game might not have tons of replayability, but at the end of the day, it's $4.99. It has that sandbox mode if you really want to do more. So it gives you that option. It's just a steal if you are looking for a management game. But if you are looking for a game that is more so on the matchmaking side, then I would say you should consider Love Ghostie. Love Ghostie is a game all about matchmaking, and it is so unique. You play as a ghost, and you can choose up to 4 characters to add to your manor at the start of the game, and then more will move in later on. The premise is that as a ghost, you matchmake couples. You steal items and you gift them to the residents of your manor, saying that it was a gift from another resident of the manor. And then that makes it seem that that resident has an interest in the other resident, and the other resident is all flattered and like excited, and it's like, oh my gosh. And then the next thing you know, they're on a date, and you're trying to see, do they actually have chemistry? Some of them will, and some of them won't. And it is just so cute and fun, and it is so hard to initially pick the 4 that you want to move in. but all of them do move in eventually, and then you get caught in all these other matches that you want to make between other characters. You're like, oh, I thought they were a match, but now I see these two together and I just don't know. It's a very, very fun and perfect matchmaking game, and it's so unique and so adorable. The next game on my anti-buying guide is Garden Witch Life. Now, Garden Witch Life, I will say, like, it does have promise, and I have been very hard on this game. I have a whole video on why I didn't enjoy it, but I will say that Garden Witch Life had a lot of great ideas. It's obviously super cute. I spent 7 hours of time trying to enjoy this game. It just needs more work. It's one of those games that feels like early access, and it just has all sorts of other flaws as well. So not only that, but it also has a $10 higher price on the Switch than it does on Steam. It's just a very, very slow-paced game with a lack of direction, a lack of goals after the first hour or so, when it's supposed to be a relaxing farming sim, but you need something to do and you need a goal to work towards, and this just didn't have that. Also, in my 7 hours of playtime, not once did I learn anything about being a witch. So if you are looking for a game that has cute fantasy and cute farming, instead I would recommend Wylde Flowers as the first option I'm going to mention, because this game is fully voice acted. It continues to get fun updates, or it had, but now they're working on another game. And it follows a fun storyline. You play as Tara, who takes over her grandmother's farm, and she soon discovers she's a witch. This game has a lot of heart compared to Garden Witch Life, and it does have that witchy element and kind of a similar cute art style. And it's just very relaxing and very nice, and you can kind of sit back and relax to this game. But there's also some grindy elements where you have farming, mining, romance, and all the things that you look for in a farming sim, but it's a very different experience. Another option, I think, could be Fae Farm. This is a really, really cute game. It is super polished. It has a lot of fun farming and fantasy elements mixed into it as you play as a fae. This game does follow a storyline, and it requires a lot of mining. So in my gameplay, I did a lot more mining than farming, but you do have to do farming and crafting and all sorts of things like that. There is romance, but that is not the game's strongest suit. It's an option though, so you have that. This game just has fun and magical ways to grow crops, and it also has fishing, animals, and all the like, and it has a much better pace than Garden Witch Life. The next game on my anti-buying guide is Sprout Valley. Before I knew that Sprout Valley is pretty much just an asset pack called Sproutlands that you can buy on itch.io and then program into a game, before I knew all of that, I had recommended this game. It's pretty fun, but you might fall off of it pretty quickly, and this game is $14.99. I think the itch.io pack is like $5.99 or cheaper, and you'll find other games exactly like this. For example, Cute Farmer Life. It's the exact same asset pack. I think that just makes it so confusing and weird, and why are you selling it? Like, I just don't understand. So it makes it quite confusing, and you might get some gameplay out of it for a bit, but then it gets pretty stale because there's not a lot of longevity. So instead of that game, I would instead suggest a game like Gourdlets, which is a much better recommendation in my opinion, because it has a cute, similar art style, but instead of farming, you're going to get to design a little island to your liking, and then these little gourd friends will arrive by train and interact with what you create. Although this is a very different gameplay than Sprout Valley, it's a similarly adorable and wholesome game, and it only costs $4.99, and it's not an asset pack that you can just buy on itch.io. A lot of heart, love, care, attention, and thought went into this, and a lot of creative energy into the art style and making that happen. If you want a game that is more similar to the gameplay of Sprout Valley, then I would suggest Littlewood. Littlewood could be a better option as it is $14.99, but it is extremely thought out. It is packed full of content, but it has a really nice pacing to it. It allows you to customize and grow your town from the ground up. You get to choose where to place NPCs' houses. You do some farming, some crafting, some gathering, some fishing. Everything is fun and purposeful and doesn't feel like a chore. It's a very peaceful and fun little game with more and more that you'll gradually discover and unlock the more you go throughout this game. So I would suggest Littlewood. The next game on the anti-buying list is Spirit of the Island. This is a sandbox RPG farming game that felt extremely clunky, overwhelming, and sluggish to me. I will be honest, I don't even remember much about this game besides how awful and confused I felt while playing it and making it just such a turn off for me. But instead of this one, I would suggest picking up Luma Island because it has a phenomenal crafting element to it. It has adventure, and you get to choose a profession to master, which is very fun. So in Luma Island, you'll manage farming, you'll explore the mines, you'll be guided to craft certain items in order to master your profession, and you can explore the island, discover temples, and even bring home Luma eggs to hatch and collect adorable little buddies that can come alongside you on your adventure. And I love that element to it. You can even have animals on the farm that help you with your farming, separate from the Lumas. And this game is not life sim focused, so you should know that there's not romance and, you know, the people you meet in the town, it's not going to be like extremely in-depth relationships or friendships with them, stuff like that. But they do have good dialogue, I will say. This game is more so about crafting, mastering, and adventuring. And I think it would be a much better game to pick up and try out compared to Spirit of the Island, as it has a lot of fun elements and it has a really good crafting element to it. The next game that I do not recommend is called Alchemy Garden. Especially do not pick this one up on Nintendo Switch. This was definitely one of the worst games that I've played. The first thing I always think about this game is how cute the cover art is compared to actually seeing the game and how it looks when you play. I don't love this art style, but I guess there is worse art styles out there. In Alchemy Garden, you can craft magic potions and sell them in your own alchemy shop. In order to do this, you need to explore the world and forage items and plants, and then you can discover new recipes. Once you have items to sell in your shop and you can make potions, then you can open the shop and sell your items. Lifeless NPCs will then come into the shop and buy them. And on the Switch, the controls were so bad. This might be better to play on PC where you can use a mouse and keyboard, but you can't do that on the Switch. And the game was just a mess when it comes to the controls. I was also just so confused. I pressed the wrong button. I completely threw away my tools that I needed, and I couldn't figure out a way to get them back unless I restarted the game or bought them in the game, but I had no money, and I was really confused and unsure how to find recipes to craft, and I was having trouble finding the forgeable items I needed. This game just doesn't provide very good quality, but the pricing isn't too bad for what you get. This game is $8.99, although I would completely suggest a different game instead. Instead, I would suggest Witchy Life Story. Although it's not a lot of adventuring and walking around, it is a really cute story game for $19.99, and it's so much cuter. It involves brewing potions for the town as you prepare for the Harvest Festival. The character customization is so cute in this game. It's a bit more story-based, but it has like romance elements in the story that you can choose who you like. It has straightforward gardening and crafting as you'll brew potions for the people in town and for the Harvest Festival. And the storyline is overall very fun. If you want something with like the alchemy potion element, then I would say something more simplistic but solid would be Witchy Life Story, in my opinion. Next up is Harvest Island, which this game has completely changed since I played it, so maybe that's a good thing. This was not an early access game when I played it. It was fully released, so to change the game so much is just really interesting. But what I did not like when I played it was how slow paced and dragged out it felt for a horror game, a horror farming sim. A little more psychological and confusion for me. Even worse for me was the UI and the clunkiness of the menus and the controls, and just the game felt annoying and weird, and I don't know. There is a demo for this one if you want to see for yourself how it's going right now, but it is not my first pick if you want an eerier farming sim or an eerier cozy game. Instead, for some eerier games that you could pick up, I would choose Cult of the Lamb. Now, this is a very fun game where you play as a lamb who is managing a cult of your own followers, and you need to feed them, care for them, sometimes even sacrifice them. There's a lot of combat in this game, but it also has farming and decorating and fishing and other fun mechanics too. And it is much, much different than Harvest Island, but for a darker yet fun pick, I think it is a good alternative. And another alternate option to Harvest Island, and if you don't want to pick up Cult of the Lamb or you've already played it, I would say something that's pretty different is Bloomtown, A Different Story. This game has an awesome pixel art style as well, and it's a narrative RPG that follows Emily and her brother as they work to save the town from demonic creatures in a mirrored universe to their own, similar to Stranger Things Upside Down. This game has a lot of turn-based combat, so make sure you like turn-based combat. And it also has a great soundtrack, so I would say if you want an eerier game, to choose either Bloomtown, A Different Story, or Cult of the Lamb. The next game that I don't recommend picking up is Sunnyside. This was a big disappointment for me, and I just wish that it was a better launch than it was, because I was so excited for this game. It is a modern farming sim that really excited me, and then really disappointed me. This is another situation where the game should have launched in early access, but it launched full release. And when it first launched and I played it, it still had bugs. And I flew miles into the sky. I thought the bugs were kind of fun at the time. It was good content. It was silly. It was hilarious during the stream. But once you actually look at the gameplay, you're like really bothered by this stuff. It took forever to go back place to place. There were things that even the devs admitted, like, oh yeah, we didn't really work that hard on that part of the game, or that part wasn't polished at all. We had so many ideas and so many ambitions. It's just like they couldn't mesh everything together. I even had a really hard time getting this game to just run well on my PC, so it was very poorly optimized, especially at the launch. But this game had so many promising ideas. The people in the game were really interesting. It had a cool romance mechanic, and I just loved the modern farming sim element of having a phone and ordering your crops and having a hose to water things. I thought it was so cool. I wanted to love this game so much, but ultimately I just cannot recommend it, especially with all the problems it has and that it might not ever be fully polished, especially as they are starting to work on a different game, and I don't know how much love this game will continue to get. This game, it's not early access, it's a full release, and instead of this, I would recommend Coral Island, because that's a much better pick and it still has this modern farming element and a modern farming sim feel. It has nice graphics, it is optimized very well for computers. I like this game a lot and I spent a ton of hours in it. It has so many fun elements like the museum, all of the festivals, tons and tons of romance options. It has underwater diving and underwater farming. There's mining, there are fun storylines that just go on throughout the entire game, and so much to discover. It definitely has a more modern feel to it than other farming sims, and it has those 3D graphics as well, and the pacing and optimization that just lets you fully immerse into the game is a must, and Coral Island has that, so that would be my pick. Oriental Valley is the next game that I do not recommend unless you just want to see for yourself how strange and weird this game is. It's so weird, it's laughable. I kind of love how weird it is, but at the same time, I did return this game back to Steam, and it was truly a confusing mesh of different assets and They were just thrown into this game. Most of the other characters in the game are just white blobs with smiley faces. Things are just very open-ended and very wacky in this game. It is definitely not the best game to pick up, but if you want some other options for goofy games that are actually worth your time and money, then I would choose another option instead, such as Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town, which is a remake of my favorite childhood game. It has a very silly, chibi art style to it. It has thoughtful NPCs, tons of cute animals, including chonky cows, big chonky bubble cows, and tons of quirkiness and fantasy that just works well. It is a very fun and relaxing classic game for me, and I think it's a fun pick. I would go for this rather than Oriental Valley, especially because they have those asset pack cows in them that a lot of these games have lately, and it just bothers me. Not in Story Seasons, they have their own special cow. An alternative pick that is so goofy and so quirky, but it works really well, is Ooblets, and this is also a farming sim, but it's mixed with creature collecting, and it's in a very goofy universe with so much silly dialogue. And the best part is that the dance battles help you gain more Ooblets and collect more Ooblets. So I love the dance battle combat. I really enjoy Ooblets, and I find that it has so much to do, work on, and unlock. So if you want a very quirky farming sim, then Ooblets is a very good option for that. My next anti-buying guide game is Homestead Arcana. This game was just not it. It kind of popped up out of nowhere, and I checked it out. In this game, you become a farming witch and pioneer the range that has mysteriously been corrupted with miasma. You'll discover the secret behind the miasma's appearance. You will grow plants to power up your spells and use nature's magic to heal the land. This game just felt very empty as you spend the majority of time alone, unless your talking cat is talking to you or around. It felt very confusing. It felt very dark and very eerie, which is not what I was expecting. And the farming part of the game was just weird, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. Instead of Homestead Arcana, I would honestly go with Palia, which is a free game on Steam and Switch, where you can craft, cook, fish, and farm in a similar but much nicer art style than Homestead Arcana. It is open world, so you can still run around the world, but you don't feel alone because you're in an MMO. And it has so many quests to do, and so many fun decorating options, and so many cool elements to it. Like you can have separate plots on your land, and there's just so much to unlock. They also do updates and events and so on and so forth, and it doesn't have any pay to win elements that I'm aware of. It's not necessarily witchy focused, but it does have a fantasy-ish storyline. This one will have a lot more to do, and it won't feel as lonely and eerie as Homestead Arcana. And plus, Palia is free. Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles, is a game that I don't recommend. I don't know why I said it so kindly and sweetly. I just didn't enjoy this game, and it felt outdated. It felt aged to me. This game is described as a relaxing open world adventure game, and in Yonder, you are the hero of Gemia. You have to find sprites and then use their power to clear the murk that is taking over the land. So it kind of has that similar miasma story going on. You can do crafting, farming, fishing, creature raising, and even more in Yonder, but it felt way too open-ended for me in a way. Like, it didn't have enough guidance, and even having quests that I could pin, I still wouldn't know how to get the items that I needed, and I'd feel overwhelmed, and I'd feel uninterested, and I had just so much frustration with this game. At first, it did feel like it was guided, and it had that guidance, but then it just wasn't, and I was just confused, and I was bored, and I was struggling. I wasn't a big fan of it, and I didn't love the graphical style or the camera movement. So instead of Yonder, I would also recommend Palia because it has that open world element. So for that open world adventure and questing experience, I would go with Palia. Or if you want something that is open world and quest based, but it has a creature saving mechanic, then I would suggest going with Creatures of Ava. This one has elements that feel like an open world Zelda in how the characters are, and how the environments are and the music and all the puzzles, but it's a little bit easier, and it has a creature saving mechanic, which is sort of like this dodging combat type of thing that you do. And it features clearing the withering, which is affecting the animals and why you kind of have to do some combat with them to remove it from them. And it's just a very unique and enjoyable game that is well-rounded and definitely needs more people talking about it. So that is my anti-buying guide. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful to somebody. Please let me know in the comments below if it was helpful or if you got anything out of this video. Please feel free to comment some games below that you suggest avoiding and maybe an alternative to pick up. I'd also love for you to join my Discord community if you would like to. We have an awesome community, and you also get to know when I go live on Twitch or YouTube, what else I'm doing and working on, and you'll just get to connect with the community more there, so feel free to join. And if you want even more content from me, then please consider becoming a YouTube member, where I provide members exclusive videos, I have members exclusive streams, and I have a special monthly podcast. And if you're still here, thank you for watching the video, and hopefully, I'll see you in my next YouTube video.